Hello, it's Elfe here and we are back on the Pioneer server. So today I have a quick video where I share some of the testing that I did with the upcoming Celestial hero Aliceth. And in this video I will first explain her abilities in a couple sentences, and then I will show you some of the teams that I tested her with, and then lastly I'll show gameplay for the best team that I was able to come up with using Aliceth. So quickly about her abilities, I'm not gonna go into detail because there have been multiple videos covering her already. But to me, she is kind of like a mix of buffer and damage dealer. And if you only look at her damage numbers, they can be quite underwhelming sometimes. Especially if the fight is quick, she doesn't really have enough time to do that much damage. I think a lot of her damage comes from her ultimate, and she's kind of somewhat slow to get her ultimate going. So then she has the buffing side of things, so she's able to provide herself and one allied hero a buff, and that buff will do a couple of things. One of them, which is really nice, is that she's able to revive both herself and the buffed allied hero once during the fight. So when they take fatal damage, instead they will be teleported into nearby area and they will gain back like 40% of their health. So this means that you can use her to buff like your main damage dealer, and then if the enemy team has something like Athalia, who usually goes after the biggest damage dealer and like ultimates the damage dealer, and they usually die at that point. But now you can save one of your biggest damage dealers once from Athalia's ultimate, so at least you can delay that death a little bit longer. Then she also provides herself and the buffed allied hero decent amount of defense penetration, so you're able to kill some tanky heroes a bit more easier. Then she can extend the buffed hero's attack range by 5 tiles, and this can be useful especially with some heroes that have like very short range to begin with. So I have listed some of those heroes in here. So for example, Atalanta has range of 4, I think Mirael has range of 3, Lily May has like range of 3 or 4, although some of her abilities have global range, so it's not as noticeable with Lily May, but it can be still like decent with Lily May. Damon has range of 3, so it's pretty funny to use Aliceth in combination with Damon, and then he doesn't actually have to move to keep attacking, and then you can have like a healer next to Damon, so that can be like decently good. And yeah, some heroes like Carolina has short range. And yeah, and then there is also Walker who has short range, so with Walker this would be interesting to be able to buff his attack range, because he can do like decent damage and some stuns, etc. But unfortunately this combination of heroes doesn't work, because one of Walker's abilities says that his normal attack range cannot be buffed by any abilities, so that combination doesn't actually work with Aliceth. So one other thing about this ability that I noticed, and I'm not 100% sure that it is working as intended, but I guess it might be, is that this ability talks about increasing the normal attack range of these heroes, but from my testing on the Pioneer server, it seems to also increase the range of the abilities of these heroes, because for example with Atalanta, her whip ability has something like range of 4, just like the same range of her normal attack range is, but if you combine her with Aliceth, it seems to be that she can use her whip from anywhere on the map, so it seems to like also increase the range of the abilities of the heroes, but I guess it remains to be seen if that's actually like intended. So yeah, it is definitely interesting that you are able to increase the range of some of these heroes with her ability, but I'm not sure like how useful it actually is, because a lot of these heroes are kind of not that much used currently in the meta. So then just by being able to like increase their range is not gonna be that helpful. Like you can definitely win by using something like Carolina combined with Aliceth, or like Damon combined with Aliceth, or maybe the best one of these is like Damon or Lily May. Yes, you can absolutely win by using them, but I'm not sure it's like enough of reason to combine using those heroes. Yeah, and the last thing that Aliceth can do is that she can execute enemies with her damage. Like it's not a super reliable way of doing it. I think she has to attack the same target for 6 seconds straight before she can execute that target. But definitely it can be helpful with dealing something like Igor. So if like Igor is only the last enemy alive, and then you still have your Aliceth alive, then she can quite often end up executing Igor at some point into the fight. Now this execute doesn't seem to work with Saida, at least that's what I was kind of noticing, so there is that, I guess, but against Igor it definitely can help. These are some of the team ideas that I tested with her. So this is just kind of not really a serious team, but you could definitely use something like this as a attack team. So here we are just buffing the Carolina's range with the Aliceth, and then we are like stunning or crowd controlling the enemies with Walker and Siren. And then whenever you crowd control enemies, your Carolina will be able to like attack them with snowballs. So you can definitely win fights using this team, but this is definitely like an attack team. You're not gonna be doing well using this as your defense team. Then this is one of the teams that I kind of like featured a bit on my previous videos, but I would say that this team is kind of like mixed in terms of like the results. It's not like super good. I think it kind of struggles around these fast Siren teams. So if you combine like Siren and Theodore and Satrana, for example, the amount of like healing reduction, etc. that Satrana can give makes it so that your tanky teams are not going to be like able to survive that easily. So that kind of team should win against this one, I think. And then also if the enemy has something like Cryonia, which is maybe not that common, but this team doesn't really have that good tools to dealing with like Cryonia, because it's mostly just like a tanky team that is trying to survive. Then I tried combining Aliceth with Shamira, and yeah, this team can definitely win against some fights, but I was not like super impressed. I think it also loses to the Siren team because the damage burst from that team is just so high. But I think in general there is like some synergy with Aliceth and Shamira, because Shamira has quite short range. So with Aliceth she doesn't have to move as much. And then Shamira's ultimate is able to like trigger the bonus damage from Aliceth's buff where you have to do like range attacks to keep firing these projectiles. So her ultimate is good for that one. So there is definitely some synergy with Shamira, and maybe it's possible to make a better team with Shamira and Aliceth than this one. But yeah, I think I was able to win with like the Siren team, which is quite common team. So then this is not probably going to be that good as a defense team. Then I tried to come up with a team that uses Aliceth and Zany, because you can buff the range of Zany's turrets with Aliceth, and in general they do like a decent amount of damage. So then, and you don't really rely on casting your ultimates, so that's why we can have Dunninger, so that the enemy can't use something like Siren team or Shamira Pandora team. But yeah, this team doesn't really have enough damage if the enemy builds like a super tanky team. And also, like Zany is not like super good against Igor, so if the enemy has like a frontline Igor, then it's going to take a while for the laser to get through Igor. And also this team is not like very good against dot type of teams, so the turrets can die quite easily to something like Shatrana and Bonnie team, for example. Then lastly, we have the actually kind of interesting team that seems to be performing pretty well in terms of like defense teams. It is like a burst type of team, so it either wins really quickly within like the first 10 seconds, or then it loses itself probably because it doesn't have any like sustain, and none of these heroes are tanky really. I would say that it can definitely work against teams that use Dunninger, because all of these heroes are able to do damage without casting their ultimates. Now obviously Siren wants to cast his ultimate, but he can still do like a decent amount of damage without casting his ultimate. And initially this team was not actually using Zany. Yeah, I was testing like Walker just to add more like burst damage and some fast crowd control effects to the team so that you can burst down the enemies faster. Then I was testing Dunninger so that enemies can't like use some ultimates. Then I was testing Laika because she can provide like attack speed for the team and also reduce the enemy's physical defense. And yeah, I was also testing Saida as kind of like a frontline tank or like alternative win condition. And I would say that all of the versions with these alternative heroes also worked pretty well, but probably the best version is the one that you see in the image. Now the placement is not necessarily the best one. Like maybe it's better to place the towers in some other way or place the heroes in some other way, but this is the one that I was using and it seems to be working pretty well. So here are a couple screenshots. One is with like Pandora Shemira team and one is with like Igor Boni Sochana team. And you can see that we were able to win against both of these teams. And the main damage dealer is going to be Indris and Zany. So you can definitely see here that they are the ones who are dealing damage, not Aliceth, for example. But Aliceth is providing buffs for Indris. And then if the enemy team has like Igor, then Aliceth can finish off the Igor so that your whole team doesn't just die to him jumping around.
No need to cheer. No need to cheer.
yeah, so that was the team, and seems to work pretty well against a lot of these common attack teams. Yeah, it's definitely not unbeatable team. Like sometimes the combination of Saida and Athalia can be a bit difficult for the team because, like I said, you can't execute Saida, so it can take quite a while for her to go through all of her revives, and then Athalia is meanwhile doing damage to your team, but you can definitely win against Saida plus Athalia combos. I have won multiple times when I was testing, but sometimes they can also win. Now, one combination that this team probably does lose quite easily is Cryonaya and Pandora, but like I said, Cryonaya is not like very common hero, so I would not worry that much about it. But of course, if your server is using a lot of Cryonayas, then this defense is probably not gonna be that good. Shemira plus Pandora combo can win against this one if you build it correctly. But I'm not gonna show you the exact team that can win, but you have to build it a certain way, but it can win. We also saw where it did not win, so it's not like it will automatically win by any means. And then, yeah, the Perseus Sandrock Lily May combination can also win against this team. Now, it is possible that with like better placement, maybe you are able to win against that team, because I was able to win against some versions of the like Perseus team. So maybe with better placement, you could even win against that team. But in general, this seems to be like very powerful defense team. That's it for this time. Hopefully this was helpful, and I'll see you next time. Bye!